call the planning meeting of January 13th, 2015 to order. Roll call.
Dickman here.
Johnston here.
Grillo here.
David here.
Guzikowski here.
Keeper here.
Chandler here.
Mayor Scafidi is excused tonight, and I will be chairing the meeting in his absence. So the minutes of December 9th will be held tonight due to a digital error with our email, and we will address that at the next planning meeting. Significant common council actions.
We do have November 25th. Do we need to approve those?
No,
Okay. Thank you.
no, that was done at the December 9th meeting.
Okay.
Carrie, significant common council actions.
I don't see any. We didn't have any.
Nothing?
I don't think there were any, Carrie, were there? No,
Okay. Uh,
nothing.
New business.
Stand by. Hang on just a
Right.
second. Let me see if I can.
I thought we had some rezones.
I apologize. There was something wrong with the paper copies that were made.
In the meantime, with the
While
awkward
we're looking for
silence
those, I can tell you, at the council meeting, there were two public hearings, one of which was for the rezoning for the lands just south of the Oakwood Lake Estate subdivision. The other was for a conditional use permit for Quick Trip for 10th and Drexel. The council did approve the rezoning for the lands on Elm Road, for portions of the property on Elm Road, south of Oakwood Lake Estates, and the conditional use permit for Quick Trip was also approved.
Thank you, Doug.
Okay, good, okay.
Also, there are some additional common council actions that are on the screen before you. Council approved a resolution accepting the Lake Vista Active and Passive Recreation Concept Plan. Also approved a resolution approving the Second Amendment to TIF number 7 Finance Development Agreement between the City and Liberty Property Limited. Also a resolution approving TIF number 6 Finance Development Agreement with Centerpoint Properties Trust. A resolution approving the First Amendment to the TIF number 11 Finance Development Agreement with the Oak Creek Hotel Group, and a resolution approving the First Amendment to the TIF number 8 Finance Development Agreement with Stella and Chewy's LLC. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. With that, we will proceed on to new business unless there's any questions from the commission.
Nope.
Okay. Item 4A, conditions and restrictions for the Oak Creek Water and Sewer Utility for the properties at 9175 and 9235 South Fifth Avenue and 3975 East American Avenue. Gary.
This was recommended for approval at the December 9th meeting. Site building, landscaping, and other plans will be coming back to the Plan Commission following Common Council approval of the conditional use permit. This is for conditions and restrictions, so if you will turn to page 5 of 6, the first one that I want to call your attention to is the change or the modification to the building and parking setbacks. This was based on the submitted site plan by the utility. After consultation with the city attorney, it appears that a modification for utility purposes is allowed for setbacks, so therefore, excuse me, Plan Commission approval of these setbacks in the conditions and restrictions would make that valid. If we turn to page 6 of 6, the permitted uses highlight that the water as storage and high service distribution pump facilities are approved as permitted uses as depicted on the site plan, which would be approved tonight, which is the site plan that was submitted by the utility. Finally, time of compliance. The standard language in our code has 12 months, and you might want to have a discussion with the utility about whether or not the construction timeline would allow them to actually complete within 12 months, or if that should be extended to 18. However, the staff recommendation is that the Plan Commission recommends that the Common Council adopt the conditions and restrictions as part of the conditional use permit for water storage and high service distribution pump facilities located at 9175 South Fifth Avenue, 9235 South Fifth Avenue, and 3975 East American Avenue after a public hearing. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Is the water utility present? Would you like to get up and kind of give us a brief synopsis of the reasoning behind this?
Sure. The project itself is way back in 2008. The DNR had, just to remind you, we had discussions with the DNR about our chlorine contact tank. It was out of compliance for several reasons: groundwater, height, over the grade, et cetera. And we had agreed that by 2018 we make some modifications to that chlorine contact tank and/or fix those issues. So in that spirit, this is the purpose behind this whole thing. We conducted an engineering study to determine what the best course of action was to correct those problems. That course of action includes a new high service pump station, 2.5 million gallons of water storage, a new intermediate pump station along with ultraviolet disinfection. So that will not only provide us a secondary, the UV will also provide us a secondary means of disinfection, especially on the crypto and Giardia side. So in order to do this expansion, we needed to expand. The most reasonable course of action was to expand to the north into those properties with storage and high lift pumping. And that's why I'm here in front of you today. Kerry had mentioned some things in the conditional use and restrictions. As far as the timeline goes, that 12 months, I would request that that be extended simply because the majority of the project will be funded through Safe Drinking Water Loan Fund monies. That's coming straight from the DNR. And we don't anticipate closing on those for quite some time. So that would be the reason for the request for an extension there.
Out to 18, you're saying you want?
Pardon?
18 months you want?
I would think 18 months should be sufficient.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Just a reminder, this is Oak Creek's 60th birthday, and with that, seeing as we're having technical difficulties, we're going to have somewhat of a throwback meeting for the committee. I will have you we'll just go this way down for your comments. So we'll start with you, Wally. If you have a comment, great. If not, pass, and we can come back to you, but right now I don't have the monitors for you guys to buzz into. So.
Could you restart your conversation? I was reading some of the minutes here.
Okay, well, you know what, Wally? We'll start with Brian, and we'll
That
come
sounds
back
good.
to you.
Come
We're going
back
to
to
work
me.
this way down on comments.
Okay, thank you.
And just kind of feel free to raise your hand, and we'll acknowledge you that way because I can't get the buzzers going. Okay? Brian?
I don't have any comments.
Go on.
Nope.
I'll reserve mine till the very end.
No comment.
Can you provide a little more detail on the reason why there was a requirement for updates? Was it an environmental issue?
Well, our existing chlorine contact tank back in 1997 was just a storage tank. After that 1997 year, they converted it into a chlorine contact tank. That means they installed some, right then it was just a rectangular tank sitting on the ground holding water. After that, they put some baffling in there so that when we inject chlorine into the water has time to serpentine through that tank so that the water becomes disinfected. Now, the problem with that, as DNR regulations have changed over time, our chlorine contact tank is below the groundwater level. So the bottom of it essentially is, the DNR's point is that there could be groundwater seeping into that. Other problems with it is the roof, it's completely underground, so that's also a violation of current DNR code, so we have to be above ground with our storage. So there's a number of other things that, other regulations that through the years have come up that have made this out of compliance. And we're not the only ones. There are some other utilities around that are having the same problem. So that's what precipitated this whole thing.
Okay, thank you.
So basically, it's just a public service improvement.
That's correct.
Okay.
Dan?
Yes, Wally.
Yeah, I have a comment.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
And this to be on item 10B, and I think, Carrie, if you look at it, it says water storage and high storage distribution pump facilities on the site plan approved by a plan commission on January 13th, 2015. That's tonight. I don't see we had the plan before?
Yes, the plan was actually presented to you at the last meeting, which is actually on the screen right now. The reason I had this date in here is because it references back to the building and parking setbacks, and those building and parking setbacks were as proposed on the plan by the utility.
Okay, so this is correct then. Thank you.
Anyone else? If I recall, there were a few homeowners that came in with some screening issues that were directly to I got my directions right, I think the south of your facilities. Are they in attendance tonight?
Yeah, yes, they are.
Do you have any comments? Have you had meetings with the utility? You guys gonna work this out? Yeah, we're gonna work it out. Come to the microphone, please. Just name and address for the record also.
Jacob Piantek, 3953 East American Avenue, and I'm the house that's pretty much by itself right there.
Okay.
But I gave him my contact information, and we're gonna work it out between each other if they have any concerns or whatever. But it looks like they're gonna be building a pond next to the house, and then that wouldn't obstruct like my view towards the lake and wouldn't really box me in. So
Okay.
I don't know.
Well, I'm glad to hear they're working with you.
Yeah, no, it's super nice. So
Okay, great.
That's
Just-
it.
Just wanted to address that because I know you were in here, boy, it's a while back, but you were in.
yeah, the last meeting or whatever we came in, we didn't really know much about it when we came in last time, but that way we got our contact information and everything will make it easier to work
Okay.
on it. So
Please
thank you.
continue to do so, and again, if you need help from city engineering, anything like that, you know, we want to coexist.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep. Okay, any other, Arden.
Arden Degner, 8540 South Pennsylvania Avenue. I have a question in that I haven't heard this tremendous expense mentioned by our citizens to pay for the extra pumping facilities for Waukesha water. When are we going to face that?
When it hits our agenda, and quite frankly, Waukesha has to come with us with the return route before that really becomes an issue for us. So Waukesha has to work with the DNR first and get their plan in place, come to Oak Creek, if I'm correct in that. So really, Oak Creek's a secondary player until they approach us to actually do the purchase.
The story I heard, though, that they're going to pay for all our infrastructure when it comes down. Now, will this fit into this larger scenario that Waukesha is? I know that. Oh, go ahead.
Well, we're rather off topic, but I'll let the experts speak to it, so.
Because I'm afraid that you're overlooking, and I want to make sure these things all come together, that we aren't doing something now that will have to pay later and
I
redo.
appreciate that, very forward thinking. So let's let the water department explain.
First, let me address the Waukesha issue. Number one, we are a ways away from anything going on there. They've got a set of problems that they're dealing with before it even comes to us. So I think to talk about it now would be a little bit premature. Secondly, as far as planning for Waukesha, this expansion is being built such that it'll be easily expandable to accommodate that type of flow. So we do have it in mind. We are putting processes and equipment in place and everything else we need to do to accommodate that expansion. So that's about it, I guess.
Great. Thank you for that explanation and perspective. With that, any other questions from council or commission?
I've got another question, Mr. Chairman, and that is the embankment that flows down to the shoreline. This has to be, as we know on the Vista development, that's going to have to be cut back and some protection made. How does this fit together with the Lake Vista? Because I don't see any mention made of the pump house itself and the different types of protection we're going to have on this Lake Vista development.
The reason you see no reference to Lake Vista is because it's non-connected. This is strictly an improvement for water processing. So this has nothing to do with the lakefront embankment.
Well, apparently it does, because we are having to consider the stormwater, and I understand there's,
Stormwater will be taken into effect when we get to the Lake Vista plan.
no, it says right here in the plans that they have to consider stormwater.
In every project, stormwater is considered, but Lake Vista is not part of this motion, Arden. Lake Vista has nothing to do with this public service.
Well, but here we have this portion of the city that drains into Lake Michigan. We've got all the water coming off of this road, which is maybe too small for figure that MMSD, as well as the water utility, having all their chemicals on this two-lane road, as well as all the houses that are going to be built
Arden,
on this.
we're not speaking about that. We're speaking specifically about the process they're doing on the water treatment facility.
And if I can interject here, the stormwater requirements are specific to this project. So every parcel or every project has to actually take into consideration stormwater, and they have to take into consideration a requirement for 30% open space. So, but that's site-specific. So they will have to deal with on-site stormwater for this project on their site. For the other site, they will also have to do that whenever we get to Lake Vista project planning for stormwater. But for this particular project, the stormwater is on-site stormwater.
I agree with Arden.
This is one of the
Please.
problems that we
Yeah.
have in Oak Creek. Stormwater flows from one property to the other. If we close our eyes and say that we don't care what happens, that's exactly the problem that the neighbors have got, and that's exactly what the city engineer has to address. This whole stormwater item has to be considered because we do have, as I understand it, in the past, there's been a large 16-inch culvert or catch bason or something from previous usage
Mr. Chairman,
that's
may I
been
ask a
covered
quick-
up,
quick-
and that's
way off.
part
Arden.
of the stormwater.
Way off.
We're way off topic. With that,
Dan, let Doug, you want to cover something or what?
I think if you look at this agenda item, this is not dissimilar to, and actually, this is approving conditions and restrictions for a conditional use permit. Part of those conditions and restrictions say that when you come in to build your facility, the Plan Commission has to approve site and building plans. As part of that plan review and approval process, the engineering department has to approve a stormwater management plan. Same thing if you're building here, same thing if you're building on 27th Street, same thing if you're building anywhere in the city. So, well, you're right, there is a connection between the stormwater from this site and the overall stormwater plan for the city. It's no more or no less of a connection than something that's happening on 27th Street. It's a process that a stormwater management plan has to be completed specific to this property. And in the review of that plan, obviously, the engineering department will take into consideration aspects of the overall stormwater management plan. But there is nothing at this point in the Plan Commission's review of these conditions and restrictions or this conditional use permit, which ties this to any changes or anything that you may have, any perceptions or any opinions that you may have about the overall stormwater master plan for the city.
Doug, would you tell us then?
please identify.
East Ryan Road. And it says here, location and location of water existing and proposed, so it's pertinent.
What?
Can you tell me where that manhole goes that's there right now? Where does that
No, I
drain into?
cannot. I'm sure that the engineering department will be able to
You
do
know?
that. As part of their review of the site and building plans, which this is not.
Right.
Well, it says it in here,
This is-
existing and proposed.
That's right. That's saying that when they come in with their plans to actually build this facility, they have to submit plans to the Plan Commission.
Well, I think that manhole leads right into that 42-incher.
That-
Again, it very well may be.
That will be
but that is
addressed.
not the topic for this evening. This is approving conditions and restrictions requiring the water and sewer utility to submit those plans to the engineering department when they build.
Correct.
Yeah, well,
With that, Commission, any questions? Motion?
The Dickman makes a motion, the Plan Commission recommend that the Common Council adopts the conditions and restrictions as item 11 is amended from 12 to 18 months as part of the conditional use permit for water storage and high service distribution pump facilities located at 8175 South Fifth Avenue, 9235 South Fifth Avenue, 3975 East American Avenue after a public hearing.
Johnston seconds.
Roll call.
Dickman, aye.
Johnston, aye.
Grillo, aye.
Gavich, aye.
Guzekowski, aye.
Seifert abstains.
Chandler, aye.
Excellent. Motion carries. Item 4B. We have a Plan Commission rezone on 22nd and Drexel for the school board. Carrie?
The request is to rezone the property at 2200 West Drexel from P1 Park District to I1 Institutional in anticipation of constructing a new elementary school. The area is limited to the area outside of the floodwater, or the floodway district, which is this blue area here. So this is the line where it would not include that portion. The reason it cannot include that portion is because that's part of the FEMA designated floodway. In order to change that designation, we'd have to go through the process in order to change the floodway there. It's not an overlay, so that's why we'd have to go through a more extensive process. So it's just not part of this request.
This is strictly to rezone.
Right, but it doesn't include the floodway.
Yep.
This is a copy of the survey, so what you would see is the rezone would affect this portion of the property here. This was actually part of a designation for a future roadway as part of a different CSM. And what you see on the screen right now is a conceptual plan for the future school. It is proposed to have 2 stories at this point, serving about 500 students. The comprehensive plan actually says that this is identified as a resource protection area. However, at the time that the comprehensive plan was drafted between 1999 and its adoption in 2002, there was no anticipation that there would be a land swap with Falk Park. Since we are in the comprehensive plan update process, should this rezone be approved, we would include that in the updated part of the comprehensive plan that would affect this property. The staff recommendation, therefore, is that the Plan Commission recommends to the Common Council that a portion of the property at 2200 West Drexel Avenue be rezoned from P1 Park District to I1 Institutional after a public hearing. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Again, at this point, we'll invite Dr. Burmeister up to give a brief overlay of the proposed plan.
Okay, well, as you know, a referendum was approved in November to build a new elementary school. In 2011, we had the land exchange agreement between the city, Northwestern Mutual, the county, and ourselves for this property. So since 2011, we've been planning for an elementary school there, and since the referendum passed last November, it will become a reality. What you see right now with the conceptual plan, we actually have moved the school a little bit more north and west. So it's further away from the floodplain area that Carrie had pointed out. So, but it is basically designed for 500 students, as she said, 2 stories. All of the entry to the school will be off 20th Street. Northwestern Mutual will be putting in the street as per the land exchange agreement, but there will be no traffic directly off Drexel to the school. It will all be off 20th Street.
With that, I'll open it. Questions from the commission. We'll start with Commissioner Carrillo.
I do not have.
Guzekowski?
How many acres are we talking, Sarah, that you've taken over here that we're rezoning?
As far as how many acres are rezoning, I'm not exactly sure, but it's 16.6 acres. But as Carrie said, the part that's in the floodplain would not be rezoned, but.
Okay, so you're just taking outside the floodplain.
Right, correct.
Okay.
We are currently waiting on an attorney's legal description for the property outside of the floodway designation. Once we have that, we will have an exact acreage for the rezone, so that'll happen before we can publish the notice for the hearing. We have an approximate acreage, but we needed more detailed acreage for the rezone.
Who takes over the ownership of that floodplain?
The floodway designation is still going to be part of the property, but the rezone will still, it won't be rezoned to anything but what it is right now, which is floodway district.
Okay.
So the district still owns the property, it's just, we're not using it for anything.
Right. Well, actually, I shouldn't even say it. It should be, it'll probably be used in a
Yes, it will.
stormwater management plan. It's the truth, I mean.
Yeah,
It will be.
Well, as you can see, the plan is for
Yes.
that to be.
It will be. So, Commissioner Chandler?
Is this a new school to replace an existing school or additional
This is an ad-
elementary school?
This is an additional elementary school.
So will it be in some way connected with the existing elementary school?
No, we currently have 6 elementary schools. This would make it 7 elementary schools in our district.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Dickman?
I want to talk to you. It says future road expansion, and you mentioned Northwestern Mutual was going to.
Right. Northwestern Mutual owns the land north of there and west of there.
I thought
They
there was
would
a
need to
park
bring
there.
it that
I
time.
thought there was a park there, wasn't
No,
there?
No.
Wally Falk Park is back farther, but part of the land exchange.
Okay.
Northwest Mutual has that, so if any
Okay.
future roads came in, again, it would be a different item.
Okay.
It would come back here for
Yeah.
consideration.
Okay,
and-
I just wanted to make sure it didn't screw up the plan, that's all, that
Yeah, no.
future road expansion. Thank you.
Commissioner Johnston? No. We have Arden behind you, so we'll open it up for public
Arden
comment.
Degner, 8540 South Pennsylvania Avenue. Since I have across the street from my home somewhat similar school location, as I understand it, floodplain can be used for recess. Now, if parking can be done on floodplain, I'm not sure about, but there's since this property across
Arden,
the street from me
The
is,
zoning doesn't include the floodplain.
what?
The floodplain is not in the zoning, so nothing could be built there. It will remain floodplain.
Well, this doesn't have to be built.
It won't be.
It can be used though for, as I understand it, for a playground.
Floodway can be used as open space.
Yeah, that's right.
But in the
right.
conceptual,
You
it's
put
not
back
included.
I'll show you, Arden, real quick. The playground area
Yeah.
It's
is
to the
all
north.
going to be to the north. It's going to be, yep, right there. That's going to be the playground area.
Oh, way up there?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we don't want the playground to be down by the stormwater
Yeah.
because
That's
we
by
don't
the
want
road.
kids going in there. So.
Parents,
Well, I
parents
have
don't
a
appreciate their
situation
kids playing in
exactly
Culver.
like that across the street.
No, we will try to prevent that.
Wet fields, they run.
If, seeing no further comments, any further questions?
No.
Okay.
Wait, I have a quick question.
yes.
Is there a name for the school?
We're taking suggestions. No, I'm just kidding. We're actually starting this month. We're going to start working on redoing the boundary areas for the attendance areas. And once that's determined and we know the community members who will be living in that attendance area for that school, we'll have them work on a name for the school.
Thank you. Seeing no other questions, Bukevich will make a motion that the Plan Commission recommend to the Common Council that the portion of the property at 2200 West Drexel Avenue be rezoned from P1 Park District to I1 Industrial after a public hearing.
No, institutional.
Excuse me.
Chandler seconds.
Motion's been made and seconded. Roll call.
Dickman, aye.
Johnston, aye.
Grillo, aye.
Bukevich, aye.
Guzekowski, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, aye.
Great. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 4C. We have a conditional use permit for a community-based residential facility. Gary.
The request is for an 8-room, 16-bed, community-based residential facility, which is considered a conditional use once you go above a certain number of beds that would be in the facility. This is a floor plan for the proposal. Now, this is different from what was in your packet due to conversations with the applicant that we've had. basically, because of the existence of floodplain and floodway on the property, which you can see here again in the southwestern corner here, having the original layout that was in your packet have a garage on the west side was going to make things difficult, if not impossible, with the grading requirements. So therefore, we discussed this with the applicant, and the floor plan has been switched. So now the garage will actually be on the east side, which allows them to build a driveway and a parking area and a garage that would be outside of the elevation considerations for the floodway and the floodplain. And this is just giving you an idea of what the architectural layout would be for the proposal. It's residential in nature, similar to the existing CBRF that they manage on Cecily Drive. Now, in terms of the specifics of the actual operation, they are proposing to have one care aide employee on site per 8-hour shift. They would have an employee on site 24/7. They would also have a visiting RN on site about 24 hours a week and also be on call as necessary. Now, no residents of the facility will be able to drive, so therefore, they're asking for a reduction in the parking requirement. They would only need about 8 spaces if they met the requirement anyway. That would be inclusive of the spaces in the garage. And then I discussed the floodway and flood fringe. So this is a copy of the site plan. I apologize that it's light in nature, but again, this is where the garage was originally proposed. It will now be over here. So the grading options are better. There shouldn't be as many issues as if it were located in the originally proposed location. The staff recommendation is that the Plan Commission recommends that the Common Council approves a conditional use permit allowing a community-based residential facility with a capacity of more than 8 persons located at 1326 West Willow Drive after a public hearing and subject to conditions and restrictions that will be prepared for the Commission at the next meeting on January 27th. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Carrie. And again, is the applicant in the house? You could come up, identify yourself, name and address for the record, and just give us a brief overlay of the project you intend to build.
My name is Stephen Chish, 561 Westfield Way, Pewaukee. Brian Schoenleber.
Thank you. Just briefly, why you chose the property, why you chose Oak Creek, and what people can expect.
Do you have a picture of the existing on Cecily Drive, 8025? We gave you like a color picture. Did that ever get distributed?
We don't have that right now.
Oh, okay. Well, anyways, we built one on 8025 Cecily Drive. It's an 8-bedroom facility. And then we decided to build another one on Willow. Due to the landmass, we kept it with an 8-bedroom, but we have enough square footage that we can put 2 beds in each bedroom. And it fits the state requirements. So that's the reason we did this. This is a Class CS, which means the residents have to be semi-ambulatory, advanced age, slight dementia. So none of the residents drive. And so the only thing we're kind of asking is maybe to reduce this park. We're going to have a 2-car driveway going up to the garage. There's only one caregiver there at a time. So, I mean, to have a 8-stall parking, I mean, this is aesthetically won't look. We're trying to make this fit in with the neighborhood as a residential home. So now all of a sudden you put a 8-car parking lot in the front yard, you're going to lose that aesthetics. So that's the reason. Obviously, if this is what you're going to require, that we'll do it, but it doesn't make sense to us. And the current assisted living that we have on Cecily, there's never been any issues. There's one caregiver, so there's 1 car in the driveway. And then once a day, our nurse comes, so now you have 2 cars in the driveway. And then once in a while, the residents will have a family member. But to have all this parking would be overkill.
Well, parking really, right now, it's just conditional use to allow it within the neighborhood. So,
okay.
That would come up again later on.
Conditions, yeah.
It would be helpful to know how many parking spaces, inclusive of the ones in the garage, that you would be requesting so that we can incorporate it into the conditions and restrictions as necessary for the next stage.
4, because if you have, parking for the garage, that's going to be a 2-car.
Two-car garage and
Right.
two.
And you could easily get 4 more cars in the driveway if you had to.
What-
You know what I mean? If you,
Okay.
you know what I'm
I
saying?
guess my
So-
concern, if emergency vehicles are needed, how do they address that at Cecily, even though it's a different facility? How would they address it here?
They back right into the driveway.
There's
And there's
ample room.
Ample room.
There would probably be a requirement for some kind of pull off the driveway for an ambulance or whatever to get through. But I did have an email from Assistant Chief Kresick, who said that he would actually be working directly with the applicants for any
For the
fire
plan.
department requirements.
Okay. With that, I'll open it up for the commission for questions. Commissioner Guzekowski, did you have anything?
Not
Commissioner
at this
Seifert?
time, no.
Commissioner Chandler?
So there were a total of 6 parking spaces? Is that where,
No,
No.
no.
4?
Well, currently, if we just put in a standard driveway, that's the width of the garage, you'll be able to park 2 cars, which you'll never do, but you'll be able to park 2 cars in the garage itself. So the caregiver will have her car in the garage, and then there'll be additional 4 spaces in the driveway
Oh, okay.
alone.
Visitors?
So, what's that?
What are the other 4 for? Visitors?
Sure.
Oh, okay.
But none of the residents drive, so it's not like the residents have their own cars.
Oh, okay.
You follow what I'm saying?
Yes.
Okay.
The part that I need additional information is this one large place with individual rooms, or is it a small house? Like a
Can you back up one, right there?
self-sustaining?
So
Okay.
that structure right there looks almost identical to the one that we built on Cecily Court, which is maybe a half mile away. And so you have obviously a huge living room, kitchen area, and then 8 bedrooms. And the bedrooms are big enough, we meet all the state requirements for common area and bedroom size to allow 2 beds in each bedroom.
I guess for clarity, when I heard you say that there will be a structure to park in for possibly each resident, along with
No,
4
don't
spaces
drive.
for.
no, you heard that wrong.
Okay, can you give me more information? Is it?
Yeah, I don't know what
total
your
for the
question is.
Facility, you will have 1 garage and 4 additional parking spaces, and that's it?
Right.
For the entire.
Can we go back to that exterior schematic? Right there. So you see the garage? That garage will house 2 cars if we need to. And then the driveway will come all the way out to Willow. And that driveway is all going to be out of cement. And obviously, there's additional parking right on the driveway. So you'll be able to house 4 more cars on the driveway, along with 2 cars in the garage. But we'll never have that many cars there, ever.
And where's the parking location for the employees?
In the garage.
In the garage?
Yeah, and there's only 1 employee in at a time.
Okay.
And then, like I said, then I have a visiting nurse that comes once a day.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Commissioner Dickman, anything?
No, I need,
Uh,
anything.
Commissioner Johnston? Commissioner Carrillo?
No.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I have another question.
Sure.
Yep.
So is that, I know we want to reduce the parking on the lot, but does that meet the parking requirements?
If the Plan Commission approves it, then it would meet the parking requirements.
Well, let me ask this differently. What's the parking requirements for this space?
It's not entirely perfectly laid out in the code for a CBRF. I estimated about 8 spaces, and that's based on the number of bedrooms.
Okay.
So it's in a single family, or actually it's in a 2-family, no, it's actually in a single family residential district. So therefore, between 1 and 8 parking spaces, it's a unique situation. I don't have any issue from a planning perspective about reducing the number of spaces.
Okay, thank you.
Right. Well, and then by reducing the parking space, you're going to keep it cosmetically and aesthetically for curb appeal, look much nicer. If we have a driveway going up to the 2-car garage. And I mean, if you're putting a big parking spot in front of the building also, obviously it's not going to fit in with the neighborhood. So,
Thank you.
sure.
No one else? I guess my question, you have a visiting nurse, but is there somebody there throughout
24/7.
shift, 20?
Yeah, they're called
hours a day?
they're called CNAs.
Okay,
Certified Nurses
Yes,
Assistants.
yeah.
So they're, state certified.
do
And they're there 24/7, and then the nurse comes once a day.
Okay. And then if the residents want to get out into the yard and in the summertime, they're supervised and helped? and
Absolutely.
like that. Okay. I have not heard from anybody from Willow or the district about it. If there's anybody in attendance that has a comment, please come to the podium.
Arden, you want a room?
Arden Degner, 8540 South Pennsylvania. Believe me, there's a lot of people that'd like to put me away. You're not the first one. Anyway, I see this same thing happening on Pennsylvania Avenue, just a block north, that CBRF. Now, let me give you my scenario. My son-in-law's aunt had mental problems. I think she got this Alzheimer's. But every day, her husband was there, drove from his home, and stayed with her for, I think it was 5 weeks or so. So I would certainly expect, if you're going to have 8 people incarcerated in a CBRF, which is exactly what I call them, see, that you're going to have more parking than just a garage.
And a driveway.
And a driveway, yeah. I see the same thing happening in the next item on our agenda here, too.
Okay, thank you for the comments. Anyone else, sir?
Next item.
Again, name and address for the record, please.
Ralph Sherifinsky, 8120 South
Oh,
Woodridge.
could you do that at the microphone, please?
I have a couple of questions.
could-
The man
could you
says
name-
he's applying
Sir?
for 8
Sir?
residents.
Could we get your name and address? You weren't at the
Ralph
microphone?
Sherifinsky, 8120 South Woodridge.
Okay, we want to make sure it's on the record.
Okay. He's talking about applying for 8 plus. Okay, 2 in a room, which raises it up to 16, if my math is right.
Correct.
Okay, I go to a nursing home once a week with a friend of mine, and we visit people. And they have visitors. Sometimes the parking lot's jammed. And it's a big facility. Now, if you take 16 people and one person visits, there's 16 cars. We're going to have cars up and down the subdivision, okay? This doesn't make sense to me. I don't understand it. Maybe my math is wrong. So, how can a 4-car parking lot with a 2-car garage accommodate this? It's not a good thing.
Okay.
So somehow they either increase the parking or cut down the number of inhabitants. Otherwise, it's wishful thinking.
Okay. Again, the parking would come up in the next item issue, but right now, we're talking about allowing it in. Any reservations about having them in beyond the parking in the area?
I don't understand the question.
Allowing the facility in the neighborhood.
I don't really care for it myself, no.
Okay.
We've been there since 1965.
Okay.
And it's been a residential area. Now, all of a sudden, we're going to change the position of things around there, and it's uneasy.
Okay,
So,
but your point's well taken, that parking's gonna be a concern, and it's something we're gonna have to really address with that, Carrie, going forward in plans.
okay, thanks.
There is a section in the conditions and restrictions that is a standard section about parking and access. Typically, what that says is that parking has to adhere to that section of the code. So if the Plan Commission wants to make an exception to that, I would need to know in order to make a recommendation in the conditions and restrictions. Otherwise, it would be standard in the parking and access portion of the conditional use permit.
I mean, we're in somewhat of a gray area, without a doubt. It's been proposed this way. I mean, we heard the developers say this is how he wants to do it. We've heard residents say that they have experiences the other way. Again, parking up and down those roads, I don't think would be valid if that indeed happened. I do agree with the gentleman that was just up here. I think we should give Carrie some direction on that, and I would move some sort of improved parking, even if it's towards the front of the building, even if it's rarely used. I think it should be in there. Doug? That's my opinion, that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, the one thing I actually had a question for the applicant, if I may.
Microphone, please.
So you're designing it as an 8-bedroom or unit facility.
Right?
What is the difference in state regulation between the size of a single occupant unit and a double occupant unit?
As far as square footage of the bedroom,
Right.
Goes from 60 to 90 for the bedrooms.
so 60 square feet to 90 square feet.
In the common area, it's just slightly bigger.
I can't hear you. Could you repeat what you said?
So the square footage of a bedroom for, if it's one bed per bedroom, is 60 square feet, as per the state of Wisconsin, and 90 square feet if you're gonna put 2 beds in one bedroom.
And forgive me not being familiar with the state regulations regarding that, but what are, or are there any regulations regarding healthcare and privacy laws with putting more than one person in a bedroom?
It's having 2 there's some facilities that have as many as 3 beds in one bedroom. And that's, obviously, we're not, that's not the approach we want to take. But with the demand for beds and the state likes these smaller facilities. So even the 2-bedroom, I mean, this will be, within 60 days, it'll be filled with residents because there's such a demand. So.
All right, thanks.
You guys currently are showing a 9-foot wide driveway, which is kind of typical. And if I'm looking at this right, you kind of have an area like a side parking. Is that incorporated in this? Is that just?
That was the original plan.
That was the original plan?
We had to change it because of the floodway.
Oh, because of the floodway.
Yeah, this hasn't been completely designed yet. This is just a.
This is conceptual?
Yes.
Okay. Again, it would be my recommendation that, you work with the applicant down the line to improve the parking,
Yeah,
without a doubt.
agreed.
Commissioner Johnston?
With your facility on Sicily,
Yes.
do you have any parking in that building?
Identically what you see here. You got a 2-car garage and it's a shorter driveway because it comes off a cul-de-sac. And that's 8-bedroom, 8-bed, and there hasn't been an issue. And, but I mean, obviously, I know we have more residents in this one, so you could have definitely more family members that want to come and visit the residents. So according to this schematic, we could even put a parking just to the right of the garage, where it kind of angles at a 90-degree off of that driveway if we had to.
Yeah.
And it would aesthetically look pretty nice.
Second question was, do you have a transport van
We do not,
that would be on site? Okay.
right? We use Transit Plus, and they come and provide, they provide rides for medical, daycare, things like that.
Okay.
Okay. Any further questions?
I agree with the parking.
Yeah.
I think we should reconsider
Yeah.
what we have.
I mean, going forward, work with the applicant and see if we
Yeah.
can improve the parking situation in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, we don't have a problem with that. I mean, if you,
Circle driveway.
Definitely, we have.
Well, yes, we will work with the applicant. We had been working with the applicant with regard
Right.
to the placement of the driveway and the garage. So we'll continue those conversations and we'll have a different site plan for the next meeting. It's in 2 weeks.
sure.
Are we allowed to do any parking on the floodway?
We'll discuss that.
I want to know what kind of patient, Rosemary Anderson, 3920 East Ryan Road. What kind of patients are going to be here?
I'll let the applicant, he did say non-ambulatory.
It's a Class C facility, so it's it's semi-ambulatory. That means they either a walker, if they're 100% wheelchair bound, we cannot take them. So they have to be either use a walker or they walk on their own. So semi-ambulatory or ambulatory. And then it's advanced stage, slight dementia, some developmentally disabled.
All right. But I think that the bedrooms are really small because that's about 9 foot, right?
Again, if they're meeting state code, they're in compliance.
Oh, too bad. We can have harder regulations here in Oak Creek. Do you want to be in a 9-by-10 room with another person that you don't even know?
Again, that's up to the relatives of that person to decide on the conditions at which they.
We can't set any standards ourselves?
We follow the state, what the state follows
Doug?
acceptable.
Without knowing what the bulk of the state statutes are regarding the care and licensing of these facilities, I will say that the state, by state statute, if this facility or any facility is 8 persons or less, which is the case on Cecily, in the case on several others, these are permitted uses in residential districts. That's a state law. So there's a real effort to integrate these into the neighborhoods. Don't know your specific, answer your specific question. It's something that the state would have to
We
inform
can't
better
say
on.
anything about the size of the rooms then.
That's something we can check with legal to see if the city can go and above state statutes with that. I suspect we cannot, but we will ask the question.
Okay, and then they have another facility here in town already? And do we know anything about ambulance calls and police calls?
I do not have that information with.
Do we have that information before a public hearing?
We will have it, we can have that information by the next public hearing when the.
All right, thank you.
Rosemary, can I ask what your specific concern is with the calls to ambulance and?
Well, there's an impact on our fire department if there's a lot of elderly people that are going to hospitals, going wherever, and there's a lot of crime and perhaps police calls when you are dealing with people that are mentally deficient. There are some significant problems in
Again,
South Milwaukee.
We'll get that information for.
Well, I hope so.
We will. Any,
Mr. Chairman?
Arden,
Arden Degner, 8540 South Pennsylvania Avenue. Why hasn't any consideration been given to the food consumption? When you have 8, 10 people, it's equivalent to a small schoolroom. You have trucks delivering food unless they're going to have a common facility like the county or something.
again, they do have a commons area, and I would think that the nursing staff is there to, the CNAs are there to provide that.
You've got to have access for trucks to deliver food or the basics of food.
Mr. Degner, we are going to continue to work with the applicant to make sure that the outline or the layout of the facility allows for delivery trucks.
Oh, it does?
Yes, we'll make sure that
Is that around and back then?
it depends on where the parking will be, but we'll continue to work with the applicant to make sure that the layout accommodates all of that.
Yeah, we're just talking the conditional use tonight, correct?
Yes.
There are no delivery trucks. We have we always pay one of our CNAs to do the grocery shopping. And so it's like having a big family. I mean, it's like you wouldn't have a truck come in for a big family. It's once a week, they do grocery shopping. And we'll get you a clarification on those bedroom sizes. I think Steve gave me some wrong dimensions because 90 square feet seems too small. But whatever it is, it meets the state square footage for a 2-bed in 1 bedroom.
Thank you.
So we'll get you a clarification on that.
If there's no further questions, motion?
Dickman makes a motion, the Plan Commission recommends that the Common Council approves a conditional use permit allowing a community-based residential facility with a capacity of more than 8 persons located at 1326 West Willow Drive after a public hearing and subject to conditions and restrictions that will be prepared for the commission at the next meeting, which is January 27th of 2015.
Seifert seconds.
Roll call?
Dickman, aye.
Johnston, aye.
Grillo, aye.
Bekavich, aye.
Guzekowski, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, aye.
Questions on that one, though?
Motion carries. Item 4D, plan review for MATC diesel shop expansion. Carrie?
The request is for roughly 4,800 square foot addition to the western side of the existing diesel shop, which This is the layout showing the proposed addition. So the addition is actually right here. The existing shop is actually located here and kind of goes along this way. All setbacks will continue to be met post-development. And this is general, I apologize that the quality is not coming up very well on the screen. This is the proposed look of the addition. The proposed building materials are 50% brick and glass to match the existing building. They also include some metal wall panels above the doors here. There's also a metal panel above the windows on this west elevation. So that would comprise roughly 35% of the building as metal panel accents. You can also see on the south elevation there's some metal panels here. Per code, there's a limit on the use of steel panels to 25% of the visible perimeter of the building. However, due to the layout of the MATC site, this actually does not appear to be visible from any public street. However, it is also stated in the code that the visible perimeter of the institutional buildings shall be comprised of glass, brick, or decorative masonry as a 75% overall rule. So while it won't be seen from any public streets, it might actually be a good idea for the Plan Commission to acknowledge that you approve of the building materials as presented. The site is currently and will continue to be gated and fenced from public access. In fact, I'm going to bring up that site plan again to show you. This is actually gated here, and there's another gate here. This is the parking for the diesel shop vehicles right there. There will be a new sliding gate fence at the north entrance right here. It also looks like the driveway will be expanded or widened, rather. So there's a question about exactly how wide that will be and what the rationale was for that. Also, a landscaping plan is currently being drafted, so we don't have those plans right now. It is recommended in the conditions of approval for the landscaping plan to be submitted to the Department of Community Development for approval. Staff recommendation is that the Plan Commission approves the site and building plans submitted by Jamie Vega, MATC, for the property at 6665 South Howell Avenue, subject to conditions 1 through 3. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. At this time, is there a representative of MATC? Please state your name and address for the record, please.
Sure. My name is Jamie Vega. I'm the Director of Construction for MATC. Tonight I'll be speaking to 6665 South Howell, our Oak Creek location. We've had come in front of the commission, I think almost a year ago, if you recall, and we've come multiple times to discuss our master planning for our campus. This is yet another step in that master plan. What this addition will do is accommodate larger, so the truck can come in with the trailer to assist students to understand the whole process. And the current facility is a bit cramped, so it does pose somewhat of a safety concern. So this facility will expand it. In addition to one of the previous approvals, we did add what we call the truck corral for parking for our newer approved curriculum of truck driving. So this will help also maintain those vehicles through curriculum and through students working on those same vehicles.
Thank you. At this time, we'll open it up to the commission. Commissioner Dickman?
On the one drawing, it's instead of stating just diesel for the existing area, it says diesel and powertrain shop. Kind of explain to me that, what that means, the powertrain part.
No, that's just simply part of the diesel program. I think they're just calling it powertrain as part of the.
Okay, but it's all the diesel.
Yes, it's all diesel.
Thank you.
Commissioner Johnston, or should I come back?
No comments.
Commissioner Carrillo?
Comment.
Commissioner Guzekowski? Commissioner Seifert?
Yeah, a question about the parking. It mentions that it's talking about 24 parking stalls for additional vehicles, and then also 8 for semi-trucks. Is that enough parking, or is it, how did you determine the requirements for that parking?
Currently, that area, I'm not sure if you recall, I referred to it last time as a compound.